Hi, my name is Mark Bleesk. I'm an industrial arts teacher in Lockport School in Lockport, Manitoba. I'm going to be taking up the table saw today. Remember, this is lessons geared towards the junior high, senior high group. However, if you're a beginning woodworker or you just want to freshen up on your safety, it's a good thing to watch what I'm going to be doing here, because none of the safety rules I'm giving are hampering on the machine. They're just going to make sure that you're that much safer. Obviously, things like asking permission, you're not going to do that if you're working in your home shop, but for the most part, these rules will apply for almost everybody that's using a machine like this. First of all, the name of this machine. Some people call it a table saw, some people call it a bench saw, and some people call it a circular saw because it has a circular blade in it. I prefer to call it a table saw. That seems to be the most generic term for the machine itself. It has only one moving part, and that is the blade. The blade itself is the only thing you really have to be concerned about with this machine. So we're going to be really zeroing in on safety in regards to that blade, obviously, and how we set up the machine to make sure that that safety is there. Now, the machine itself needs to have, obviously, the blade. It needs to have a splitter at the back of the blade, which is this silver thing right here. Some splitters look different than others. This splitter actually moves with the blade. There are some splitters that are just stationary. Either one works. This one works really, really well. This is a kickback teeth on either side. There's two sets of them. That's to prevent the wood. This splitter, along with the kickback teeth, is there to prevent the wood from coming back at you. That's called a kickback. You don't want the wood coming back at you. It has a huge velocity coming out of the machine and can hurt your hands and your body. We want to prevent that. These kickback teeth prevent that, and the splitter prevents that. We also have a guard that goes on top of the blade as well that helps to prevent sawdust coming in your face. You're obviously going to wear goggles to make sure, some sort of eye protection to make sure that that's not going to happen. Want to talk about personal protection? Make sure that you have no loose or hanging ties or hair. Put the hair in a ponytail. No bling. Make sure that you're not going to have anything that could possibly get caught that's loose and hanging. Sleeves rolled up that could catch on the blade itself. Next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that the fence is lockable and you can't move it when it's locked. If the fence moves when it's locked, you'll have an inaccurate cut and you'll have a dangerous cut. Don't want to have that to happen. I want to set the machine up, so I need to get the wood that I'm going to cut. This wood has been prepped, and it's been prepped on the thickness planer and the jointer planer. I have planed a surface on the jointer planer, and I planed another surface on the thickness planer, and I've jointed an edge on the jointer planer. These all are conducive to getting a board ready to be cut on the table saw. I'm going to use a ruler or a tape measure to measure the board. Now, obviously, the board is going to have different measurements. I'm going to take the smallest measurement, which happens to be 5 inches in this case, and I am going to set up the fence, lift up the handle, and push the fence into position. Some fences have a little dial knob on it that moves the fence over. That's fine, but most fences nowadays are these square fences. I put it in at 5 inches and then lock it down. Once I have it locked down, I need to double check that measurement. I don't trust this to be absolutely perfect because this can be bumped. This is a junior high shop. We have kids that are constantly touching these things and bumping these things and experimenting with screwdrivers, which they shouldn't do, but that can get moved, so I don't trust that. So I'm going to move back now to the blade itself and get my ruler. And I'm going to now check to see that that's 5 inches. Now the blade has an interesting configuration. It has teeth that have one tooth pointing to the left, one tooth pointing to the right, and one tooth going up straight. That creates what's known as a kerf. The kerf of the blade is the width of the cut of the blade. It's the sawdust that's removed from the cut. You don't get that back. When you're cutting with a table saw or any circular blade like this, you have to take into account the width of the cut of the blade, which is called the kerf. That will determine your measurement. Your measurement can change based upon how many cuts you make and how much kerfs you are cutting through the board. Each kerf is approximately 1/8 of an inch. You have to incorporate that into your total measurement. A lot of students forget to do that. And as they're cutting through a board, they're not getting an accurate measurement because of that. So I'm going to double check with the tooth that's pointing closest to the fence, and I'll see if that's 5 inches. See, it's off by a hair. So I'm going to move that like that, Good thing I didn't trust it. I just tap it over. So now, right there, that is in line with the outside of that tooth. This tooth is straight up and down. This tooth is pointing towards the fence, and now I'm gonna lock that down. Sometimes when you lock it down, it moves a bit, and I just tap it over to get it right placed. Then I lock it down tight so that it's not gonna move. Now, here is something that a lot of people will do, and it's a bad habit. They'll use a ruler like this, and they'll leave it on the table after they have finished doing their measurement. And we have had an accident in this shop to one of my students where the ruler was like that. It got caught and hit the blade and went flying. Missed the student, thank goodness, but it was a lesson learned. Do not leave anything loose. Wood, metal, pencils, nothing, goggles from another person, whoever. Don't leave that on the table saw on this side, because it could easily work its way into the blade, and then you're gonna have an accident. So we're gonna put it down onto this side of the blade. We could also use a tape measure to do that, and that brings me to a lesson of the tape measure, which I really like to do at this time. If you look at the tape measure, all tape measures move like this at the end. And I always ask my students, why do you think that it does that? And everybody just sort of scratches their head. Very few know the answer. The answer is that when you're measuring against something, you have the accurate measurement. When you're measuring that you're pulling, you have an accurate measurement, because as it pulls and goes in, it takes up the thickness of that material that is the end of the tape measure. So it moves in and out by about a 16th of an inch to get an accurate measurement. So again, if I'm measuring this way, I get one measurement. I pull out this way, I get the exact same measurement, proper, because I'm pulling it back and forth. I had a student one time who decided he was going to help me. He said, Mr. Belisk, I fixed all your tape measures. I said, well, what'd you do? He says, well, those rivets that were loose, I hammered them down for you so it doesn't move anymore. And obviously that didn't help me much. Those tape measures were 1/16 out, depending which way you're measuring from. So they weren't accurate anymore. So very important to remember that that's what that's for. All right, I want to now use this table saw, and I have a plain surface that's going to go against the table, and I have a jointed surface that's going to go against the fence. You can't have the non-jointed side go against the fence. That's really, really, really important. An accessory that I think is absolutely necessary in today's world in a junior high is a featherboard. Now there's all sorts of configurations of featherboards. This one is a really cool one, and that is a rare earth magnet locking mechanism. There's all sorts of different manufacturers that do this, that use these machines, these tools. So I've locked it in place, and it doesn't move. You can move it, but it takes a lot. It keeps a good pressure against your board, so I don't have to put my hand there. I can go back to the back end of my board, and I can have it held against the fence. It's a helper. It's an excellent helper. I'm holding the board, as you can see right here, with my right hand. The right hand is going to adjust the cut as I'm going through. Then if you look over here by the fence, as we're pushing the board through the table saw, it's really, really important to watch the board in relation to the fence. Okay, it's very important to watch the board in relation to the fence. The other thing you need to do is set the height of the actual teeth. We want to have the teeth to be one tooth above the wood, like that. One tooth above the wood. So once the teeth are about one tooth above the wood, you can bring that guard down. I'm going to move this back just a bit because it's in the guard right there, and lock these in. So what I usually do is I lock one end in place, then I push this one in and lock it into place. So it's going to hold it in tight. Now I'm ready to rock and roll. When you push your board through the table saw, don't look at where the blade is. You can't see it anyways because the guard is covering it. Watch the wood in relation to the fence. Don't let the wood come away from the fence this way, and don't let it come away from the fence this way. Keep it tight against the fence. It's jointed. It should be tight. There should be no air gaps all the way along here if you have a good jointed board. I'm again holding it back here. I got my other hand up here, so it's going to hold it down. What tends to happen is the board wants to float over the blade rather than going through the blade. So you have to hold it down so it goes in through the blade. If it floats over the blade, it's going to be stopped by the splitter and you're not going to be able to go any further. You have to make sure that you're holding it down. I'm going to turn the machine on, and every machine has a different place for turning it on. Where it is here, that's a really good place where I can reach with my left hand. Some people have a toggle switch on their table saws. You shouldn't have that in a junior high. It should be a magnetic switch so that it's much safer. Turn it on, and
push it forward. I'm keeping, remember, the board against the fence. When I get my right hand to the table, as it is right now, I hold the board with my left hand. Notice my thumb is holding it. I grab a hold of a push stick, which I have here, and I put the push stick on the board so it's in between the fence and the blade right here. So it's in the middle, not at the edge, not the side, right in the middle, so I can have a nice push through. The push stick is going, the way the push stick is designed for a fence along like that, I can actually put force this way so that I can keep the board against the fence as I'm pulling through. I've got a sign on this feather board that says left hand here. Remember, keep your hand safely occupied no matter what. If I let this hand sort of just sit here and I'll operate it casually like this, and I see a piece of wood that's just hanging there, I may want to go and pick that up. If I put my hand here, and I like to put my thumb on top of the board like this, and then I go all the way through. I can use the nose just to push it all the way through, and that's okay if it goes on the floor. Don't worry about that. If you were concerned about the board, you don't want it dropping on the floor, you can get somebody to be at the other end to grab the board for you, but make sure whoever is helping you understands that they can't pull that board. They cannot adjust that board. They're just waiting to catch it so that it doesn't hit the ground. That's their only job. If you have them pull the board, they're going to be taking the control away from you, and you want to be controlling the machine on this side, not that side. Okay, this is the side of control, that's the side of just catching. You're just a catcher, that's all.